Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Good morning, DFW. Wait, we got an action-packed show today. We're going to be talking about everything from the legendary Zig Ziglar to UNICEF. Where is it now after 70 years of doing good on the planet? We're going to talk about what is a philanthropreneur and why you should become one. But we're going to begin the show with family law. And my first guest is Jasmin Dodson. She's with DodsonLegal.com. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Okay, so this is a show and a segment that I think so many of us can relate to, unfortunately, including myself. I got divorced. But you are a person who is a big believer in you can survive divorce and not be devastated by divorce. I know that you're very compassionate. Tell us why you got into law and specifically family law.
Well, my first job right out of law school was working for a big insurance defense firm. So I never actually had a client. I represented the insurance companies. And as I started getting older and having a family, I decided if I'm going to be away from my family and doing something, I want what I do to actually make a difference in people's lives.
And so when a couple comes to you and they've been fighting, I know a lot of people in your line of work see dollar signs. Wow, this is a juicy divorce, and if we just keep these two battling it out, I can make a bunch of money. But that's not you.
No, not at all. At Dodson Legal Group, what we like to do is we sit down and we talk with the clients and we figure out what their interests are. And if their interests include wanting to resolve their dispute as quickly as possible with the least amount of harm to the family, especially the children, then we try to help them reach those goals.
And when somebody comes into your office and they're just mad, like they're angry, and how do you handle that? I mean, are you a listener, or how do you relate to somebody who is just angry and bitter and wants to do harm to the person that they're getting divorced from?
Well, believe it or not, that's happened to me on more than one occasion where you have someone that comes into the office and, for example, the most common is they've been cheated on and they just want to read that other person their rights. They see these big divorces that happen on TV and they've got pictures that they want to show you and they've got lots of evidence and, they want to just take their spouse to the cleaners. The first thing I explain to them is how the real world and real life is different than what you see on TV, and what the courts look at and what the judges are really going to be looking for and how the law actually applies to their situation. And some of it is hard to hear because a lot of individuals have preconceived ideas as to how they want their divorce to go. But I strive to give my clients a realistic approach to how they can resolve their conflict in the most expeditious manner and still try to help them obtain the things that they want out of the marriage.
Well, and I know that the media is picking up on your story and your legal expertise because you've done interviews with stations across the country. I want to talk about one of the things that you talked about recently, which was divorce cakes. Why don't you first explain that? What is a divorce cake?
Well, if you Google divorce cakes, you can see anything from a bride with a hammer hammering the spouse down into the cake. You can see anything. Also, I've seen some that are really kind of gruesome where you've got a bride that's having the head of the groom with, kind of blood frosting dripping down a white cake. And these are the types of things that people are doing to celebrate their newly found freedom.
And what's your view on that?
I'm all for getting closure in...
The whole studio is erupting in laughter.
I'm all for getting closure in a divorce. However, we have to keep in mind that a lot of times there are children involved, and you don't want one day your child to scroll through your Facebook feed and see a representation of their other parent with a severed head or even worse. So in my opinion, I think if you're going to have a divorce cake and you're going to do it, go with the girls or go with the guys, have a nice weekend in Vegas, let it all out, but please don't publish these things.
Yeah, when I looked at these same pictures that you're describing, and I thought to myself that the end of a marriage should not be celebrated. And I mentioned to you that my father-in-law was let go from a company, and I got him a cake that said, the name of the company and then sucks. And I did that as a way of, wrapping my arms around him and saying it's going to be okay. But I don't think the loss of a job and the loss of a marriage can be put in that same category. Can it?
No. And Jeff, a lot of times we have situations where someone is hurt and someone's feelings are hurt, and it's not like business law. What it comes down to is it's personal, and somebody's feelings are hurt because they lost their partner. And on one side, you have someone that's celebrating, and on the other side, you have someone that's devastated. So I think that it's important to show a little bit of tact when you're dealing with these types of things.
My guest right now, Jasmin Dodson. She is with DodsonLegal.com. Another subject that you've talked about on the radio is taxes and how cheating spouses are often found through taxes. Explain that story to me.
Well, I've done a few spots with different hosts, and we talked about how you can look at your tax returns to find evidence of infidelity. And one of the major things that you can look at is, say you've got your spouse is telling you that they've been working lots of overtime, and you look at the tax return, the gross income, it's the same this year as it was last year. And you're thinking, well, you're working all this overtime, but I'm not seeing any money for it. That's one way. Another thing is you can take a look at your spouse's income, and you see that your spouse has only made maybe $20,000 for the year, but yet they've got Louis Vuitton purses and been to the Bahamas 3 times this year. That might be a clue that there's some income coming in from a different source.
I think you might need to do stand-up comedy. You got our whole studio just rolling with it. Let's talk about social media and divorce, because I know that when Facebook first started becoming popular, the stories were coming out that attorneys were going on Facebook to see signs of either infidelity or hidden money. So explain how social media is playing a larger and larger role in divorce cases.
Social media is probably one of my best sources of evidence. A lot of people don't realize that you can now track where you've been through social media, and you can track who you've been there with. So if you're telling your spouse that you're at the library when in fact you're at a bar, they can find out and have evidence of that. Another thing that people fail to realize is maybe sometimes you might get tagged in someone's photo that you're not supposed to be in. So things like that come into play. The most important thing about social media and divorce cases is you have to be careful with the things that you post on someone else's Facebook page. You have to be careful about the things that you text, because once you put that out there, it's staying there. Someone can print it out and bring it into evidence and show the judge, look at what he said to me. Look at how he commented on my page.
Right. So when you're representing somebody, is one of your first courses of action, let's make sure that your Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is clean.
Absolutely. And don't post anything else. Don't talk about anything. Don't text. Don't put any pictures. If they comment and they say something, you don't have to respond back to what they're saying. You can just look at it, print it out, keep a record of it.
I've even heard cases where, they're trying to reach a settlement, and maybe the husband's claiming that he doesn't have any money, and then he posts a picture of himself next to this new boat. That would be an ill-advised photo.
That would be an ill-advised photo for both the client and the attorney for not admonishing him beforehand to not post these pictures of you and your new boat, because then all of a sudden you might have grounds for appealing a divorce decree if it's found out that you've been hiding assets.
Okay, now another story that you've been on the news for is a study that showed something about expectations of your spouse. High expectations of your spouse could be a contributing factor to divorce. What was that study about?
I believe that one was about people are holding their spouses to a higher expectation than what they are actually able to produce. So, for example, you are married to someone, you have a high expectation for yourself, and then you put that high expectation on the other person. And that person can't meet those expectations because that's not what they signed up for. That's not who they are. A lot of times people get married because they think that it can fix whatever problems that they're having in their relationship. Then later on down the line, they realize that this person's not changing. Well, it's not your job to change that other person. You take them as they are when you get married to them.
So is there a lesson here? I mean, should you set low expectations going in? Say, honey, I'm really not going to amount to much, just so you know.
Well, in my opinion, and everything that I've seen, and being married myself for going on 10 years this August.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I think that it's important to really get to know the person that you're going to be married to, and don't expect them to be anything that they haven't showed you that they are already capable of being. It's one thing to try to encourage someone to be better. However, if you go into marriage thinking that I'm going to be the one to change this person and make them more than what they are, they also have to want that too.
Wow, you've been an amazing guest. I think you need your own show, or at least stand up at the Improv once a month. My guest, Jasmin Dodson from DotsonLegal.com. Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, he was a legend. Zig Ziglar, one of the people who is keeping his legacy alive, is next on the Jeff Crilley Show.
More of the Jeff Crilley Show coming up.